welcome. My name is Lee Hunzinger. We are in Addison, Texas at our Zoli's New York Pizza location. Pilf Restaurant Group is Zoli's, Rosso, and our new concept, Thunderbird Pies, coming soon to DFW area. We're going to go through all the stages of a Sicilian pizza and how I like to do it. It's actually 5 ingredients, right? Flour, water, salt, oil, and yeast. A little bit of oil is in there. We're going to use a poolish technique today, which you can see here. I started this yesterday. It's been fermenting for 14 hours now. It's equal parts flour and water and just a little bit of yeast. Percentage wise, it's like 0.015%, so it's really a little bit of yeast in there, and it just kind of works all night long. And God willing, I always say it's nice and bubbly and fermenty in the morning. The aroma coming from it is a nice super sour flavor. I'm going to start by adding my water first. So the hydration of this dough, I'm going to do 1 kilo worth of flour, 1 kilogram, 1,000 grams, right? So the rest of my recipe from that, percentage wise, is a little easier to break down. So this is 560 grams, okay? 56% if you're doing baker's percentages. Water. All right. I'm going to add my yeast. The yeast is pre-weighed as well. 0.15% yeast in this dough. I like to use an active dry yeast. Next, I'm going to add my poolish, and you can see one here. I have this nice and bubbly. I have it already weighed in this container here. So. Now, if I try to pull this out, as you see, it's going to stick to the container. It's super sticky, elastic, right? So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to add some of my water that's already counted for, okay? Be very careful with this, because if I added some different, water from another container, I'm going to actually add more water to my recipe. So, and just a little scoop as such. And then it just releases right from the side as such too. So I want to make sure I get everything in that recipe. I'm gonna just kind of pull apart on my poolish until it becomes one with the water. All right, it will probably mix if I just added the flour, but this will make sure that it does. So you can see it kind of all dissolved in one solid color there. Okay, now I'm going to add my flour next. Okay, it's important. I'm going to hold back. I'm adding my salt and adding my oil. Okay, my oil is going to be the very last thing I add to my dough. The salt, I don't want to add the salt at the same time as my yeast, as it can kill the yeast as well too. The salt will just eat away at the yeast, and that's why we kind of keep it separate. I already have this weighed out, exactly 1 kilo. I'm going to add that to my dough ball. Make sure I get it all in there. Alright. And now I'm going to put my dough ball on my KitchenAid mixer here. Make sure it clicks in. I'm going to use the hook attachment. So the total hydration on this dough, between the poolish and the water, and a little bit of oil that we're going to add, is about 66%. So I make sure I have it all the way cranked up here, and I'm just going to put it on the low speed, super low speed. I want to let it mix. After about 2-3 minutes, I'm going to add my salt. We're going to go about 3% with our salt. It's a little bit higher. So right about now, our dough is mixing. It's a dough ball mixing around here. And I'm just going to add my salt while it's mixing. I'm not going to stop it. So we're just about there. It's been mixing for about 5-6 minutes here. And I'm going to add my oil just for the last 2 minutes of the mix. For the last minute, I'm going to turn it up a little bit higher and get a little bit more gluten, a little more strength of the gluten from a higher speed. something a good friend of mine, Brian Spangler, in Portland, Oregon, taught me a while back. So it's all mixed now. I'm gonna take the hook off first here. Wow, it's nice and strong dough. I mean, you can feel how strong it is. You see how it comes right out of the bowl. And we're just gonna give it a little push here, have it come together a little bit more, and then we're gonna let it rest. I'm just gonna add it to this container here and let it set a timer for 45 minutes. Okay, it's not quite 45 minutes yet, but we're still gonna perform a stretch and fold nonetheless. So we can use a little bit of water on the table, we can use flour. In this case, we're just gonna use a little bit of food release spray. So I'm gonna stretch it. Now I'm not gonna come super thin so I can like see the table, but I'm gonna get a nice stretch on it. More importantly, I'm gonna do it evenly. I wanna make sure that this part of my dough that I'm stretching is the same as this part or in the center, right? So I want the same thickness. I don't want to pull it out as wide as the table. Just want to get it. You're gonna repeat this process 2 times too. So we're gonna do it. We'll do this one typically. I don't know if it'll be in the video, but it'll typically rest for another 45 minutes. You repeat this process and then let it rest for an additional 30 minutes before cutting and bowling. So typically, like by the time you're cutting and bowling your dough, if I'm done mixing my dough at 10 a.m., typically I'm bowling it up 2 hours later at about noon. 45 minutes, 30 minutes. So it's a little bit longer, as this takes a couple of minutes. So, but at any rate, that's about, it's about 2 hours later. The pie is good to go. Well, I'm going to keep an eye on that as we go. So I have this nice and level. I'm just going to come about 2/3 of the way up, right? Keeping it even. Pull out this side as well. And I'm going to come over the other way. And now I'm going to rotate it this way here. I'm going to stretch this out a little bit wider. Okay? Stretch. I don't have to go any longer. And now I'm folding. I'm a little more than halfway. Okay? And now I'm coming back. And then you can see on the side, you can see my the layers, right? I always liked that. I thought it was really cool. And now I'm going to put it back in the container 45 minutes, right? So I don't want it to necessarily fold over again. Just going to lay it here nice. Now we're stretching the glutens, had an opportunity to relax, and now we're stretching it, okay, and making it stronger. People say, well, how do you get crispier pizza? Well, there's a lot of factors that go into that, right? Your temperature of your oven, but your dough. Your dough is a big part of that. So I'm just, once again, I'm going to wrap this. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is, I have some dough that we made a couple of days ago here. I just remember, at a young age, stretching Sicilians, and we would put them in an oven that wasn't on, okay, to rest, and we would have to go over them 3, 4, sometimes 5 times just to get the corners to stay in, okay? And you're stretching a round dough ball into a square pan, so the corners are always the toughest part to get to stay if you're using oil. If you have that that right amount, it's a little bit easier to do. However, Crisco, using a little shortening, it cuts that prep time down significantly. When I stretch it in, I'm able to get my dough into the corners super easy. If you're one of those people that likes olive oil and you love olive oil, by all means, this is what we use. This is what works for us. So we're doing a 12 by 12, okay? And my dough ball is about 570 grams. Our Sicilian pizzas, or the ones I like to make, are typically 4 grams, about 4 grams per square inch. So we take that number. If you're doing an 8 by 10 pan, right? So it's going to be 80 square inches. Multiply that times 4 to make a Sicilian pie at an 8 by 10. I'm going to lay the dough. I like laying it face down. Now, the bottom of my dough, you can see the fermentation. Okay, all these little bubbles and air pockets. I like having that part of my dough on the top. Now, after we stretch this out and get it where we want, I'm going to brush it with a little bit of pizza sauce, okay? that sauce, I feel like it sticks to the inside of the dough a little bit more. I feel like the smooth part that was the top makes for a better crust on the bottom, a little bit crispier. Initially, I'm just gonna pull these corners out a little bit. And I'm gonna pull a corner out here. Just not so it's super thin, but I'm gonna start getting that square shape, okay? Now, a dough ball that has been round and we're stretching it square, a lot of times your dough is gonna stay in these middle parts right here. And you can kind of see it a little bit thicker there. So those are the parts I'm focusing on getting even. And by doing that, my corners are gonna relax and get into that corner a little bit easier. Pressing it. Now, not necessarily, of course you're gonna push air out while you're dimpling, but I'm not purposely pushing that air out, leaving that as much air as possible in that dough. That air is gonna fill up and expand and give us that nice open crumb shot in the middle that we all love to see in pictures, and flavor-wise it's absolutely delicious too. So I have it pretty even right now, okay? Now I have a dough docker here. This will help you, if you put a little pressure on it, it'll help get the dough even. It helps the dough relax, okay? And it also will help, if you put the right pressure on it, it'll help get it super even for you. I make a crust by just where I wind up putting my sauce. Where the sauce stops is where the crust is. So not a huge crust on the outside. And so I'm coming around. I'm using my fingertips and I'm just pinching into the side of the pan, real thin. Not a lot of dough. I want most of my dough to be in the center of the pizza. So this is really just framing it. And you can see I come up as high as the pan comes high. And it'll basically tell the center of the pizza to go that high when it rises. Super even in the center. Now, growing up, I remember putting ladles of sauce. Okay, we would have dough that would be proofed beautifully, and then we would put ladles of cold sauce on top. And a lot of times, the pizza guy would press with the ladle, and all that beautifully risen dough that's super tender would get pushed down, and you wind up with something that was a little warped shape-wise. And if it's warped, it's not the end of the world, but gravity takes effect. So when we're putting our sauce and our cheese on, it's going to want to dip to the lowest part of your Sicilian too. So that's why I'm always fanatical in getting them nice and even. So I'm using Chow tomatoes. We're using the Chow Authentica. Right out of the can, they are crushed. They're a great consistency. We add some fresh herbs to them, so I just added a little basil, some fresh thyme, fresh oregano, and some sea salt. And that's it. You know, they're such a great tomato. I don't want to do much to them. I just want to enhance them. Instead of putting a whole ladle on there, I'm actually going to use the brush, and just because I want sauce to be on there. So having a little sauce on there, number one, it'll keep it soft, but it'll also it'll help the finishing sauce mesh with the crust again. Now, before I wrap this and it goes into a proofer, these were stretched about 9 p.m. last night, and I just kept them out at room temperature. You know, if it's not in a warm place, it'll take a little bit longer. We like to use a proofer box. It accelerates that process, so it's really, they might be in there for an hour and a half. We use plastic wrap here. Now, the reason why we do that, and I'll show you with the ones that I stretched out before. See, I like to wrap it super tight, super level, okay? So it's not gonna stunt the proofing process of the dough. As you can see with this dough, it's fully proofed. It's kissing the plastic wrap. Now, because it has that sauce on there as well, it's super easy. It's not, when I pull the plastic wrap off, it just kind of slides right off of it. It doesn't stick to it, doesn't pull on your dough, nothing like that. Super level, super tender, like I was saying too. So we're gonna put this in the oven for our par bake. Now we're at 525 degrees, okay? Typically we par bake it for about 6-7 minutes. When that pie is baked, it's gonna look like this. So it's super soft. You see the color of the sauce, you can see the dimples, okay? Even though it's proofed evenly. And the bottom of the dough, real light caramel color to the bottom. You can see my fermentation by those bubbles on the bottom there. I feel like the par bake makes for a crispier pizza. It also allows us at the restaurants to have a pickup if somebody orders one. Instead of it being 25 minutes, 25 minutes, our pickup is about 12, 13 minutes. We brush our pans with extra virgin olive oil for the final bake as well. We love the flavor. Today we're using some of the All Italia extra virgin olive oil. So I'm going to take a nice, this is a 3-ounce ladle. So I'm going to get a nice heaping 3-ounce ladle, place it in the center of that pie. Very lightly, I'm just going to use the ladle, press it even. I'm going to stay an inch away, about an inch away from the crust, okay? Now, sauce on top. I like my sauce on top. So that being said, I still like a little bit of sauce on the bottom. Why? Because I'm going to add my cheese next, right? We're going to get a nice pinch of pecorino romano cheese here. Not too much. Pecorino romano is great flavor. Nice and salty too, so I mean I don't want to add a ton of it. So now we're going to use a whole milk mozzarella cheese. This is a shredded whole milk. I'm going to go super light with it so that you can still see the sauce. Okay, that's one thing I try to teach all the guys here. It's always like when we're building the pizzas, we want to see the sauce even when it's done. You know, unless it's an extra cheese pie, I don't want necessarily the whole pie to be white, right? I like some of that sauce to really creep through. And I've always been a sauce guy myself. I like a lot of sauce. My wife loves a lot of sauce. She always asks for, bring a pizza home, extra sauce. So that's just the way we like it. So I go light with it. I kind of let it hit the sides. If it hits the crust, if it falls in between that little gap there, like I said, it's all good. I'm going to add some of this Leone. It's a fresh mozzarella loaf. It's a dry loaf. I'm going to go super light with it. Okay? Super light. And this is going to give that fresh mozzarella flavor without all the moisture of like a ball of fresh mozzarella maybe that would be in water. So using this ladle, I'm going to go around the perimeter of the pie, and it's really about, I want to say, if you're doing ounces, it's probably about 1/4 ounce, just a little splash of sauce. And I like going around rather than starting in the center. Whenever I'm making pizza, whether it's the cheese, the sauce, whatever it is, I always like to frame the pie, right? So I'm not missing any spots. I'm going to add some of this beautiful Leone fresh mozzarella, and we're going to be cutting this in 9 slices. So I'm going to add not too much, as it's going to be, it's going to add so much flavor to this pizza as well. Just a touch. And now I'm going to add my hot soppressata. Rather than starting in the center, I'm going to start on the outside. This stuff, it's spicy. It's not too spicy. So when it comes to spicy food, I'm a wimp. A lot of people like to make fun of me as such, but this is perfect for me. It just has a little bit of heat, super flavorful. I like adding just a little bit of green. We're going to finish this pie with a little bit more, but for now, that's all we're going to do. We'll give it another pinch of pecorino romano, just a tiny bit, and then we're going to place it in the oven at 525 degrees. About 12 minutes on the bake. So it smells beautiful. Bottom has some color, but not a lot, so I can go directly on the oven. All right. And here we are. So I'm going to cut. I'm going to come 1/3 of the way down here. I'm going to give it a nice. You can hear that snap, right? Super crunchy. All right, so we're going to add our post-oven ricotta dollops. I like adding them nice and small, much like the way I built the pie. Instead of starting in the center, I'm going to start directly on the outside, just little dollops. real little. And just go around the whole pie. For me, I like just little and a lot of them. Something like that. Now we're going to put our hot soppressata marmalade, which is our jam here. I like using the gloves in my hand so I can actually feel exactly how much I'm putting on. It's also fully cooked and at room temperature right now. I don't want to cook this. That's why I didn't put it on the pie too. It's a lot of sugars that are in there, and it will separate and it'll burn actually because the sugar will conduct in the oven. This stuff is super sweet, salty. I don't want to put a lot of it, you know, just a little bit. Find that balance. So even with the soppressata on the build side, you see it's on the pie, but it's not covering every single inch of the pie, right? It's just trying to find that balance of flavors. Now the last thing I'm going to do is just put on a little fresh basil, and that is it. We're all set. I like a lot of basil. I like a lot of sauce. So I mean, the desired amount just really depends on how much you like. I like to put at least one leaf per slice. And this is your dope soap pizza. We are all set. I just want to thank everyone that asked me to do this demo and you know, to be a part of the New York Pizza Festival. To say it's a dream come true, it is. And like I said, I'm from New York. All my family still lives in New York, and that's where I go. That's my home. I love living out here, but boy, I love New York.